to get a
Hey, you guys, my name is Aisha Malone. I am the owner and co founder of Rose Café. To talk a little bit about Rose Cafe is a reading cafe that we're bringing to the 60628 area code. We are trying to dismantle the book desert in our community. That way, kids in this community can have access to representational books, timely books, quality books, and new books. Our efforts are high. We have done a lot of work in the community to help us with this mission. And then Rebecca will talk to you a little bit about her and some of the things we've done with our mission.
Hi, my name's Rebecca. I am the co-founder of Rose Café. And just to piggyback off Aisha, a few things that we do. We have book drives in the community where we give out free books. We actually have one coming up on Juneteenth. And we will have another at the end of the summer to kick off back to the school year, which we're very excited about both. And then we have monthly book clubs and author talks like this today, where we host local authors and to learn more about their books and to promote their books, because we do want to promote local authors and Black authors as well. So if Kenyatta, if you could introduce yourself, we can get started.
Sure. So my name is Kenyatta Young, and I am a mother of two, and I am also a fully alum, I call it, from the 60628 area code. Whoop, whoop. So I am from the Roseland area, born and raised, and this is a privilege and honor to be here today. So not only am I author, I'm also a CEO of a company called Pencil Skirt Project, where I help women in leadership elevate their career, confidence, and cash. So it's just great to be here to be spotlighted.
We are so excited to have you. So as we get started, we're going to ask you a couple of questions about the book. We do not want to give away too much of the book because the goal is to get people excited to read your book and to buy it from us. When Rebecca mentioned some of the pop-ups books, some of the pop-ups that we do, we will have your book out there so that people can have access to it locally. Like wherever we are, your book will be.
Awesome.
So just to start off, I want to start with the title. If you could tell us what was the inspiration of the title. I noticed that L.I.T.E, Up Sis has its acronyms, and if you kind of talk about why you chose that and what each acronym means.
Yes. So it's all driven by God. I can just start there because anytime you think of, at least for me as a spiritual person, the light just gives so many elements behind it. But it is my proprietary framework that I developed almost a year and a half ago. And I wanted to be able to not only inspire and uplift, but I wanted to also teach. So each of those letters really means very different fundamental meanings. So the L is meant to be lead with a sense of purpose. And many times people, when you think about, I'm an HR professional, HR executive with over 16 plus years. Sometimes when we think about leadership, we just think about someone who's, leading for impact in a company, but sometimes we don't lead with purpose. So I won't give too much away on that one. And then the I is to identify. Many times we individuals don't take enough time to identify our distractions. What's holding us back from living out our purpose? What's holding us back from really fulfilling the potential that we have within ourselves? And we are distracted by many things. I talk about in the book around fear, internal, external distractions, which I'm sure we'll get to. And then the T is to transform your life with SMART goals. Many times people just don't realize, like when you wake up and you just do certain things on autopilot, if you don't set up a plan for your life, then you just will technically live it without any necessarily goals. And so I really believe in, if you set up SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic and time bound, you truly are able to have a more fulfilling life. So we can definitely go into more detail about that. And then the last letter, which is the most important to me, is E, which is to embrace. So embrace, it means more of like, how do you love on yourself? Self-care, self-confidence, self-awareness. Who are you in the inner core? And being really comfortable in embracing your own self. So I talk a lot about affirmations, and I've honestly came up with one with my daughter, and just been able to shine your light wherever you go, whomever you with. It's all centered on who you are internally. So that's what the L.I.T.E means, and is my proprietary framework that I use for my one-on-one coaching with my clients. I have curriculum behind each of those letters, as well as how I provide different workshops. So it definitely is a stem of my brand, and obviously my book.
Love it. Light it up, sis.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you have clients and you do consulting. So who is the target audience for this book? Is it somebody that would come to you as a client, or someone, or who's this for?
No, I love that. That's a really, really great question. And so in the beginning of the book, you will learn right off that this is for girls and women, right? So no matter where you may be, like my daughter, she's 8 years old. So many of the inspirational stories that you'll read in my book is really stemming from her. So I wanted it to be very relatable to young girls in elementary, high school, to college, and some women who are literally in their 70s have come to me and said, your book has transformed my life. And so I really wanted to be very flexible and nimble, a way where any life story could be very applicable to wherever that person may be in their journey. And so, yes, when you read it, I'm talking about careers. And so you would think about those individuals who are emerging into their career. So mostly in that high school range, but I really wanted this to be open and flexible, that a parent can pick up this book and read it with their daughter, and been able to have discussions. So even in the book, there is different questions at the end of each chapter to obviously have that dialogue. So definitely for women, for girls, but also for parents to have the dialogue with their children as well.
You mentioned in the book that your life experiences, well, I can quote it actually, you said like, your life experience helped you come up with this book. Is there something in particular that happened that made you say, okay, so this has happened and it transformed me in a way, and
Yeah.
now I'm giving you guys this book?
Oh man, every chapter, I literally provide a very personal story. So there is not one particular story that really stems from the book. You will see in the evolution of each chapter is very unique. But one, if I had to pick a one particular story, it was centered around my daughter. It was really when you become a parent, and many who may be listening to this can do a head nod, is you become a role model in so many different ways you just don't know. And you become a staple of lessons that you just don't know how to teach, and on less in the moment. So I'll give you an example. I was riding and dropping my daughter off to school, and I happened to bless her with my stylist hands and doing her hair, which I'm not really great at. And she had these wonderful pom-poms in her hair, and she was just not so happy about it, because she thought many of her friends wouldn't like it or approve of it. Next thing you know, I noticed she was just starting to cry. I'm like, whoa, what's happening? And immediately I had to have a lesson with her. I listened to a lot of motivational speakers, and they talk about how do you, motivate yourself and be more confident. And I'm like, how could I be the confident activator, all about purpose? And my daughter herself is struggling with confidence. So in that moment, I decided to say, look, at the end of the day, it matters what you think about yourself, not anyone else. Let's start doing some affirmations. And in that moment, that's where the chapter self-confidence and self-affirmations came into. And even the brand that I came up with is the I Am brand, which is I am confident, I am brave, I am bold. We say that every day to this day. It's been 2.5 years. Every day to walk into school or driving her to school, we say it religiously. And the moment to me that really honed in, I'm like, I need to make this part of my book, is when her friend was like, I'm not feeling comfortable, I'm not feeling confident. And she was like, listen to me, it's all about what you think. Let's try the I am statements. And so she started to recite those things that I obviously taught her, but she believed it. And so I said to myself, if I can write a book one day now I have, I'm going to instill that in there because every woman, every little girl have its challenges when it comes to self-confidence. And I don't want anyone to not have the ability to know how to build that. And so that's what I put in the book, a step-by-step guide on how to build your self-confidence. So that's one particular story.
Love it.
I love that. And along the similar lines, who was someone that helped build your confidence and a role model that you thought of as you were writing this book?
I would say personally, my grandmother and my mother. My grandmother, she didn't have a high school education, someone she was very strong and persevered to any challenge. Many times people think about confidence of how you show up, but it's more or less how you are able to bring yourself to light and providing for your family. So that was one key element for me. And then my mother, she helped me as a teenage mother, right? And so no other person I can think of that exemplified confidence than her, being able to have a child at 16. I mean, as an adult having children, it's not easy. And so can you just imagine how much that may have weighed in her self-confidence? And so that definitely played a key role in what you see today from those two individuals.
Okay, so then I'm sorry. Now we want to kind of talk about some of the things that you talked about in the book. So you kind of targeted like, the 9 to 5. Can you live out purpose and work in your 9 to 5?
Oh, absolutely. I'm doing it today. I think the first thing you have to do is make a decision. Okay. In my book, I start out with your why. What makes you happy? Why do you do what you do? And centering on that, because that stems to what you will do with your time. So yes, I'm an HR executive. I am very busy. However, I make time for what makes me happy, which is I'm an entrepreneur. So I wake up for 4:00, 4:30 in the morning every day. That's how I was able to write this book. It was a commitment because my why gives me fuel to do the things I love. So I don't see my why as a burden. I use my 9 to 5 to fuel and invest into my why. So it makes more sense when you do those internal assessment of what gets you going. So absolutely, once you make that commitment, it's non-negotiable. At least for me, it is today. I make time for it. And it definitely is an individual decision that you must make on your own.
When you think about you had made the commitment and the sacrifices, even waking up at 4:00 in the morning, being a parent, that is a lot. Right? Yes. But you had to make that decision.
Yeah.
How long did you want to write this book? And when did it come to the point like, okay, so Kenyatta, I got to get up. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry if this is a stacked question, but not only that, when you made the decision, how hard was it to make that decision? Like, okay, this is what I want to do. How long have you been wanting to do it, and how easy was it to marry the two?
Okay, we're gonna start from the bottom up.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. This is real talk. First of all, I didn't never think I would want to. There's a lot of there's a lot of misbeliefs internally about yourself. So that's one thing I had to do is get rid of my inner critic. Number one, I can barely get my past and present verbs together when I'm talking. So when I'm thinking like, what am I going to do? Write a book? I totally did not believe in myself to even think that would be something that I could do right now. I'm like, when I get older, that may seem like a great thing to leave a legacy, because my why is centered on my kids having something to tangibly touch to remember me from. So it's always been like a personal goal, but it seemed like so far reach. Like I come from the Wild Hundreds, from Roseland. Me write a book, that doesn't seem like it's in my realm to even reach. So it was kind of comical, to be quite honest. Like, I like it. Then my friend and I, she's a publishing coach. She was like, Kenyatta, you will be amazing. You can write a book. I'm like, sis, you got 2 books. I can barely even formulate enough to write a chapter. What are you talking about? So she was like, look, a lot of your clients come to you about XYZ. Talk about something that's fairly easy and it represents your heart. I was like, I was like, okay. She's like, take 1 chapter at a time. You already get up in the morning, just dedicate 1 chapter every 2 weeks. It's just a couple pages. Just write whatever you feel. I was like, that sounds really corny, but I'm going to try it. And I was like, okay, God, I'm going to write the chapters out. I'm going to make a commitment to write one chapter every 2 weeks. That seems feasible. And so I really believe in everything I put in my book. I practice. I made a goal. I wanted to be done by a certain time. So I started out in the pandemic. Right, we were really right in the midst of COVID. So I started September, I want to say 2020, and I did not finish until last year, September. So it took me a full year. There was moments when I finished, there was moments when I did not want to finish, but I had to persevere because those words on that paper was more than me. So I had to get out of my own way. So when you had asked, like, how did you do it? I had to make it less about me and focus on the light. When you hear that, it's like the light is not about me. It's to shine his light through me to others. So I made it. Jesus had to come talk to me plenty of times in the night, but it became very important to me to say, are you going to be selfish enough to hold back the light from other people making a transformation? How dare you? I'm like, oh, that's heavy, but that's the truth. So sometimes I had to have those conversations with myself to be able to bring that to light. And so it became clockwork. I made it a commitment, kept getting up and making it happen. And before you know it, at least a year later, it was a completed project. And one thing I'll say in addition to that is, it wasn't just about writing the book, it was conquering my own internal fears. So when people hear me talk, they like, oh, Kenyatta, you sound so good. I love to hear you. I had an internal fear, which I wrote in the book, around my own communication. And I end up, God said, the only way you can get over it is if you record an audiobook. So I had to go even further to that. And so now I also have an audiobook as well.
Going back a little bit to what we were talking about before in terms of purpose, something that I struggle with is, I think that, and I think Aisha can say the same things. I've always known my purpose. I've always wanted to be in education, work with kids. How do you support people that don't know what they want to do, or are kind of lost, don't know what their purpose is or what they're passionate about?
Yes, that's a really loaded question. It's an amazing question, by the way. And I have a chapter in the book called, identifying your purpose and your passions. When people hear purpose, it just becomes overbearing because it seems so like far-fetched. So one of the key things that I do in generally is to try to compartmentalize what purpose means to each individual, and by asking them unique questions. My daughter can answer what she loves to do. She will give you a long list. She loves to play, she loves track, she loves to draw, she loves to dance, she loves to put things together, she loves STEM. So that's the same general question that I would ask any person who's not necessarily able to identify their purpose is, what do you love to do? If you have all the money in the world and someone says you get to just have a free day or a free moment, what would you do in that time frame? You will most likely, people will begin to explain that. So if you were that person, how would that show up for you in the place you're at today? Are you able to bring some of those strengths? Are you able to demonstrate some of those things you love to do in education? Is it because you love to write curriculum? Are you doing that today? How could we create some of that in your space where you are? So it doesn't have to be such a big thing like I'm looking to be, solve world peace. Each individual has their own way of what they love to do. And it's just a matter of like, how do you drop that into your everyday life where you're at least able to say, I did something I really enjoyed. And then the second piece I always say is, if you're not doing what you love to do, what can you do to change that? Is it more of your mindset? Are you not taking on the opportunity in front of you? Or are you not taking enough time to determine what that is for you? Sometimes people just don't know what they love to do. And you ask yourself that question, why don't I know? Have I not rested enough? Have I not sat down with myself? We're so busy every day that we don't even have a time to formulate a thought. So it's like taking those small self-care moments. And in my book, I also talk about giving yourself grace. There's no perfection in purpose, right? Everyone has a different calling in their life. Like some people are meant to be educators, like you said, and that's all they want to do. And that's okay, right? As long as it gives you permission to live life that you were destined to live, that's perfectly okay. But even if you get to a point in your life, you're like, I don't like this anymore and I don't know what my next is, giving yourself a grace pass and say, I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to figure it out on a day-to-day basis. That's it. And that's also something I talk about many times. We just don't give ourselves permission because we're all aiming for perfection instead of purpose and calling and passion, which just takes time to form.
I think that's
Go ahead, sis.
sorry, just following up like that, allowing yourself that grace and the idea of your purpose doesn't necessarily have to be your 9 to 5. I think
Right.
that people feel that pressure a lot. And like, honestly, with all three of us, you know, we all have something that we do all day long, you know, with work or school or, you know, and then have this passion project on the side, and then those two can exist at the same time.
Absolutely. And I make mine, sorry if each of you wanted to say something.
No, I'm
I
listening.
make sure mine is intertwined.
Mm.
So I don't rob myself out of the fuel that gives me fire throughout the day. So yes, I have to have my fix in the morning, right? But I also find opportunities where I can incorporate my purpose through my workday, right? So I love coaching. I mean, that's part of what I do. So I try to really be intentional that whatever I choose to do, it aligns to my purpose too. So I don't want my 9 to 5 to be any different. If anything else, it shouldn't feel a heavier load. That's not what I wanted. And I think that's a choice. Some people do have separate passions from what they do 9 to 5. That's you as an individual. But for me and my journey, I was like, oh, that's too taxing. I want to be able to do something that I love to do all day, because it is taken away from the things I love, like my family and things of that nature. Yeah. So it is a commitment that you have to make sure you think through. But absolutely, you can definitely make them coexist.
It had to be a mindset shift for me, majorly, because you know my passion is education. My passion is the youth, but and I say mindset because you also use that word a lot in your book. So I do want to know, you know, because you work with clients and you say you coach, how difficult is it to like help someone change their mindset? And what is some of the excuses, if I can use that term, that hinders people from having that shift? Because, you know, I'm sure you talk to people who give you a little and you got to pull a little bit more out of it, and then they'll probably have that epiphany moment like, you're right, Kenyatta. What are you telling them? And what are they telling you? What are some of their fears when it comes to trying to get them to start thinking about their passion and about what their next move is?
You said the magic word, fear. That's the core.
What are they scared of?
It's the way we look at fear, to be quite honest. Everyone has a different definition of what they see fear as. I know in the book, I say it's F is face everything and rise, right? So that's the FEAR instead of failing and running. And one of the key things that I say in the book is really being able to conceptualize what fear means to you. So like I talked about communicating in public speaking was a fear of mine. Okay. So I wouldn't raise my hand. I wouldn't speak up in meetings. I wouldn't volunteer to do a prayer if someone asked me. Like, it would literally make me sweat. I would get a headache, stomach, everything would just turn around. And the fear wasn't so much that I was afraid what other people would say. The fear was more internal of what I believed about myself.
Say that.
Right? So that's what the mindset shift is about, is how do you identify what's holding you back? What barriers it all? It stems from fear. So when we asked about like, how do I help coach individuals? It's one is self-awareness. I cannot tell you your fear about something that you yourself don't know about, right? So I'm able to say out loud that I was afraid of public speaking, but also other people will say, Kenyatta, you sound so good. And I'm like, no, you don't. That's not, no, I'm really afraid to do that. But I had to come to terms that I actually was fearful of it and other people didn't see it. So I had to come to a realization that I needed to fix it. So there was a few things that I needed to do. One, I needed to have self-awareness. I needed to write it down. I tell my clients all the time, sometimes you just got to look at fear in its face. And when you become able to see, I think I do the visualization of, if you were a giant and you see the ant, it takes you, so like if you're a giant and you have to like bend down and you hardly can see the ant, that's how fear sometimes is so small. When you write it down, you're the human, you got the right, you got the pad. This is small fear and you're this large, right? So sometimes we got to really look at fear in its face and say, you're not that big, you're not that big enough to conquer me, right? So that's number one. The second is to really be able to understand, what are the benefits of me not conquering this fear. So if I didn't overcome my public speaking, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. I would not have an audiobook. I probably wouldn't be in the position I'm in right now. So you have to understand, what are the cons of you? What are the cons of you not doing this? What would be the drawbacks? And the third, the benefit. The benefit is that other people, hopefully thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, will be able to listen to this on YouTube. Their lives will be transformed. My kids will have something that they can say they're proud of their mother, and so forth. So you have to make those lists, because it becomes like, I cannot operate in this faith, in this fear, because too much is at stake that I do not want to sacrifice. So when I'm talking to my clients, I'm like, so when I do salary negotiation, so I'm like, so you're making X amount and you comfortable leaving six figures on the table because you're afraid to ask for more? How many people can do more with six figures? Like, you can buy you a house, you can pay the tuition. I mean, we can list it out and they come up with the list. Oh yeah, these are the great benefits. So you're gonna say no? No, I need to figure out what I need to say. So it becomes a different mindset shift of like, how do I see fear, making it small? What are the drawbacks and what are the benefits? So then fear becomes like, oh, I'm done with this fear. I need to figure out how I can become able to overcome it. And now the mindset aha moment happens, to your point. It's like, oh, I will not allow fear to defeat me. So sometimes I'm gonna let you go even further. I'm a firm believer in what you see, you believe, and whatever you believe, you behave. So I tell my clients, if you don't believe that you can overcome your fear, you have to write it down and post it. So I have around me, you can't see it's a lot of post-it notes, but I have defeat is not an option. It's literally, I have so many more around me. So I tell my clients all the time, even if you don't believe it, at least write it down. So when I say to myself, I'm not a good communicator, I would say I'm an amazing public speaker. I will be on stages that many people will call me and have me travel internationally. I'm going to be a profound speaker that everyone will know my name and they will be able to say, Kenyatta Young, I aspire to speak like her one day. Right? That seems different. That feels different. So I show up different because I'm like, it's not negotiable. So that's how I break down fear with my clients, identifying those three things, writing it down, and making sure they change their language to reflect the things that they are fearful of and making it the opposite.
I feel like I'm your client. I feel like I really
Me
need
too.
that.
It works. It works. Literally. I just had a client meeting on Friday and we unlocked $1 million for her. $1 million. Can you believe, like, she's been walking around with $1 million fear? Can we not all use them? Can you, Rebecca,
$1
use
million fear? That's crazy.
I can figure out some things to do with $1 million.
I can conquer that fear.
But even in the simplest term, just saying like $1 million fear, like it makes it sounds like we're not doing our part, but it's easy to do our part. Like, what, $1 million fear? Okay.
It sounds like common sense, but common sense is not always common. right? When you see fear as a giant and you're the ant, right? So it's just a visual piece. It's shifting your role and what you see fear as, and who's the driver and who's in the passenger seat. So it's just a, as you said, it's a mindset shift, and you have to do it daily. It's not anything you just can perfect overnight. So that's what people hire me as a coach, like, help me, right? And so it's like changing the perspective and putting it in action. Now that's a different thing,
Yeah.
right? You can have the mindset shift, but then your execution still is not quite there. But that's why I have the reflection questions
Yeah.
in the book, to be able to write it down. Because something about when you, I mean, you're educators, so when something about when you see it, you read it, and you write it, it becomes part of your memory. Then you write it again, you say it out loud, now it becomes part of you, right? So I really believe in that, and that's why I made it that simple. Like, if you read my book today, the steps that I just walk through is in the fear chapter, how to overcome fear. Here's the things, write it down. And then you have this kind of aha moment. I'm like, okay, let me work down and up. So then it no longer becomes my issue. And many fears, it's a spider web. So just imagine you have a lot of fears that comes against you every day that you just have to tackle individually. So that would be, yeah, it's $1 million fears out there.
I like
So
that. I like that. And I'm gonna take that with me. I do want to ask one question before Rebecca
yeah,
and I wrap up. So you have 7 secrets, right?
yep.
How hard was it to narrow down 7 secrets? Like, I'm sure like you could have thought about so many things that help us, light it up. How
Yeah.
did you come up with those 7? What was there like a process you did for you to say, okay, these are the 7 that I want to talk about?
Well, let's just say, before I answer that directly, Light It Up Sis is a series. So
Mm,
I do see it being more than just this book, where we can talk about multiple topics. So that's a hint, hint, more to come.
I see.
And so, with that being said, with the, again, the end goal in mind, knowing I want this to be a series, I can't talk about everything in one book. I want it to be a pleasing, appeasing for other people to want to pick up the book again. And so the 7 is really, when we think about completion, as I mentioned, a spiritual person. So I really believe in that number. And the topics, I wanted to be very relatable on things that people don't talk about in
Mm.
school. No offense to education,
No,
but
I
we don't
get it.
talk
I get it.
about, we don't
Please.
talk
They
about a lot
didn't teach us
about,
none of this. They didn't teach us
no,
none.
I didn't get taught this. I'm still not. I mean, I'm in where I'm at. I'm still not getting taught about it. So it's like building your confidence, overcome your fears, what a smart looks like, how to give yourself care, all of those elements as women, as humans, we just need. But I feel like as a woman, we need even more, because it's just different challenges that we're up against. And so I really wanted to be able to hit the sweet spot in a simple way that people can understand and relate to, but also give them the tools. I've read a lot of books. I mean, I listen to podcasts and books, and maybe people talk about a lot of things as high pie in the sky, but it's like, well, how do you apply this to my life? Give me the tools that I can use right now. And so I wanted to create a book that was simple enough that people can learn, transform, and then also apply right now. So those topics to me was very easy to come up with, but also I wanted to come up with the number 7 for completion purposes. And
Mm.
I couldn't think of anything else beyond the chapters and the titles that I came up with that would meet the needs of what I wanted to get accomplished.
Love it. Love it.
I think we could talk about this all night, and I definitely could continue to listen to you. But just to respect everyone's time, I think we're going to start wrapping up.
Okay.
Thank you so much for talking with us tonight. We are so excited to continue to promote your book. Like we mentioned before, we do pop-ups, and this summer, every Saturday, we'll be at the South Loop Farmers Market. So for anyone who's watching, wants to come meet us, purchase this book or any other books, we'll be there. It's in Printers Row from 9 to 1 every Saturday. And then also, if you're watching and interested in donating a book, there's a link on our website where you can purchase a book that to be included in our book drive, because we do, we also collect donated books. So we can come pick up any books that you would like, but we think it's also important to include new books in our drive. So if you like to either donate or purchase a book, can reach out to us on Instagram or on our website.
Kiana, we want to thank you so much for spending time with us. We're going to get this book out there. We love using our platform to highlight local minority authors. It's very special to me because we come from the same neighborhood. And like we talked before, they don't expect this. Mm-mm. But this is proof that will be there forever that, you know, success and we are roses that grow from concrete. And I love that you get to share that with me because when you talk about role model, you are definitely a role model to me.
Thank you.
So I appreciate what you're doing. Keep doing it any way that Rose Cafe can support. Thank you for the referral you gave me the other day. I'll be talking to your friend about her book. This is exactly what we wanted. This is exactly what we wanted. I don't know if we're gonna try to turn it into $1 million dream.
Hey, you gotta speak it. It will happen. If you believe it. No, I just wanted to say, you know, this is like I'm a walking miracle. So this is just a sincerely heartfelt moment for me. When you think about the things that you think and the things you feel like will come to pass, you never know where it's going to land and where it's going to go. So this is just a eye-opening experience for me. And I feel nothing but like blessed from this experience, truly. And then for me to be able to be spotlighted from the place, like my first 2 pages, I highlighted Roseland because it's so important to be able to showcase to young kids in that space that they can do the same thing as me. And so you all were able to do that for me and bringing this to light. So I appreciate it.
Ms. Young, if you have time, on the 19th, we are doing a book drive with the WIC Women, Infant, and Children in Roseland, right there on 115th. I don't know if you want to use the opportunity to give out some of your books or let some people meet you, but we are all about partnership and we will continue to give you that information so that you can be a part of that if you would like to be.
Please do send it to me.
Sure will. Thank you, everybody. I think
so much.
See you. Bye.
Bye.